You know, there's something deeply seductive about a country that appears, almost overnight, to have figured it out. But I don't mean the Croatia of sun-drenched coastlines and Game of Thrones filming locations. I mean the Croatia being whispered about in economic circles, the one whose GDP is climbing, whose tourists are flooding in, whose Euro adoption was hailed as a triumph. I mean, when you really begin to see past the surface numbers, past the official celebrations, something altogether stranger comes into view. And here's what nobody tells you. The most dangerous economy in the world is not a failing one. It's one that looks, for all the world, like it's succeeding. Do you ever look at a place and feel a kind of cognitive dissonance, where the postcards say one thing and something deeper in you quietly says another? That's what many economists and many Croatians themselves feel when they look honestly at their country's recent story. Because on paper, and this is important, on paper, Croatia looks remarkable. Euro member since 2023. Tourism revenues hitting record highs. Foreign investment arriving. The streets of Dubrovnik are full. The numbers, as they say, are good. Nobody tells you this, but numbers are the most convincing liars we have ever invented. Do you ever feel that something presented as prosperity might actually be a very specific kind of fragility? Dressed up in the clothes of success? Do you ever wonder whether a boom that rests on a single foundation is really a boom at all, or simply the quiet loading of a very long spring? What if everything we've been taught about Croatia's economic miracle is backwards? Here's where it gets interesting. Because Croatia's story isn't a lie. It's something far more complicated than a lie. It's a half-truth. And half-truths, as the old wisdom reminds us, are more dangerous than outright fictions because we relax our guard around them. Let me share with you 4 things about Croatia's economic illusion. 4 layers beneath the surface that most people never examine. And by the end, I think you'll see something that changes how you understand not just Croatia, but the whole story of what modern prosperity actually means. Now, the first thing you must understand is that Croatia has built its economy on a foundation that only works when the weather is good, literally and figuratively. Tourism now accounts for somewhere between 20 and 25% of Croatia's entire GDP, which sounds wonderful, until you understand what that actually means. It means that a country of nearly 4 million people has, in a very real sense, outsourced its economic identity to the appetite of foreign visitors. Think of it like this. Imagine a village that discovers it has the most beautiful well in the region. People travel from miles around to drink from it. The village prospers. The villagers stop farming, stop building, stop making anything, because why would they? The well provides. Then one summer, a drought comes. Or another village digs a prettier well. Or simply, the travelers change their minds. We've seen this pattern before. Greece, Cyprus, Bali during COVID. The tourism monoculture doesn't fail slowly, it fails entirely, and all at once. Think about it this way. Croatia's coastline is irreplaceable. Yes, but the experience of a coastline is not. The tourists who flooded Dubrovnik last summer, they made that choice in competition with Montenegro, Albania, Greece, and a dozen other Mediterranean destinations opening up with lower prices and less overcrowding. This is why the Croatian government's dependence on tourism revenue isn't a strength. It's a beautiful, high-definition, sun-warmed vulnerability. The second, even more important thing, is something the tourism numbers simply cannot fix. Croatia is emptying out. Since joining the European Union in 2013, Croatia has experienced one of the most significant population outflows in modern European history. Estimates suggest that somewhere between 300,000 and 500,000 people, predominantly young, educated, working-age Croatians, have left for
Estimates
Germany,
suggest that somewhere between
Ireland,
300,000 and
Austria, and
500,000 people.
It's like trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is wide open. You can turn the tap up, attract more investment, boost tourist revenues, but if the people who would build the next generation of that economy are leaving, the water level still drops. I once read an account from a Croatian doctor, a young woman who had trained for a decade, who explained simply, "The salary in Germany is 5 times what I would earn at home." The question isn't why I left. The question is why anyone stayed. Here's the profound part. An economy isn't ultimately made of numbers. It's made of people, their skills, their ambitions, their willingness to build something local, something rooted. When the most capable leave, what remains is not simply a smaller version of what was. It is a structurally different thing, older, less adaptable, and quietly desperate for a quick fix. And this is where it gets dangerous. The third thing, which is perhaps the most insidious, is that Croatia's adoption of the euro in January 2023, celebrated as a great maturation, a coming of age,
Croatia's
may have
adoption of the
locked in
euro in
problems
January
that can no longer be
2023,
easily escaped.
celebrated as a
Here's what this means in plain language. Before the euro, Croatia had the kuna. And if the economy overheated, or tourism collapsed, or wages became uncompetitive, Croatia could, at least in theory, devalue its currency, make itself cheaper, attract investment, regain competitiveness. It was a painful tool, but it was a tool. The euro removed that tool from the workshop. Think of it as a stage play, where the actor has always improvised their lines when the scene went wrong. Then one day, someone hands them a fixed script and says, "You must read only this, no matter what happens on stage." The audience may love the play today, but what happens in Act 3, when something unexpected occurs? Watch what happens in nature. When you remove an organism's ability to adapt, when you take away its capacity to respond to a changing environment, you don't create stability. You create brittleness. The organism looks fine until the moment it doesn't. This is why currency union is not neutral. For a country whose economic structure diverges significantly from the Eurozone core, and Croatia's does, monetary union is a bet that the future will be kind. History suggests we should not rely on that bet. And the fourth, the most critical of all, is the nature of the growth itself. Croatia's GDP has been rising. This is real. But here is what the headline number conceals. Much of what is being measured as growth is, in economic terms, consumption and services, not production, not innovation, not the kind of deep structural development that makes an economy resilient across decades. The EU structural funds flowing into Croatia, billions of euros designated for infrastructure, modernization, development, have been, by many assessments, absorbed without transforming the productive capacity of the economy. Roads are built, but the industries that might use those roads competitively, still underdeveloped. Consider this. Croatia has a relatively small manufacturing base, low R&D investment as a percentage of GDP, and a business environment that still ranks poorly on ease of doing business indices. The growth is real, but it is, in many ways, borrowed growth. Growth funded by transfers, by tourism peaks, by EU subsidies that will not last forever. The muddy water, to borrow an old image, looks clearer when you stir it. But clarity requires stillness, and the stirring of short-term indicators has concealed what lies beneath. And this is the part that changes everything. Growth that does not transform underlying structure is not building a future. It is, in the most precise sense, consuming one. So here we are, back to where we started. A country that appears, almost overnight, to have figured it out. All of these things connect because they are all expressions of the same deeper pattern. The pattern of a society that has chosen the appearance of prosperity over the difficult, unglamorous work of building its foundations. The tourism trap, the demographic flight, the euro's golden cage, the illusion of growth. These are not separate problems. They are one problem wearing different faces. And that problem is this. When a society orients itself toward the short term, toward the visible, toward the impressive quarterly figure and the glossy headline, it trades away something it may not be able to buy back. The beautiful, difficult secret is this. Croatia's challenge is not uniquely Croatian. It is the challenge of every society that mistakes the sizzle for the steak. Every individual who confuses the performance of success for success itself. Every institution that learns to manage perception rather than build reality. Croatia is not broken. It is not failing in the way that a collapsing economy fails. It is doing something subtler and more interesting. It is showing us, with great clarity, what a beautiful, real, functioning place looks like when it has not yet asked itself the hardest questions. The questions about what it is for, what it wants to build, who it wants to be in 40 years. Those questions do not have easy answers. But they are the only questions that matter. The next time you find yourself looking at a place, or a company, or a life, and thinking, this looks successful, this looks like it's working. Remember what we've explored today. Ask the quieter question. Not what do the numbers say, but what do the numbers not say? What is being consumed to produce this? Who is quietly leaving? What tools have been surrendered in the name of stability? The real economy, like the real life, is always happening just beneath the surface of the visible one. Croatia's story is still being written, and in that, it is rather like all of us, full of extraordinary gifts, carrying real structural tensions, somewhere between the boom it is experiencing, and the deeper flourishing it has not yet chosen to pursue. And so the journey continues